My name is Dylan, and I have been telling street stories for over 15 years. I usually talk to the kids or young adults who are at risk of drug abuse and peer pressure. I start off with a series of fast-paced escapades, which lead some kids into changing their traditional playground of gangs into something positive. My stories follow their adventures from selling or using drugs and alcohol. This helped them to become entrepreneurs, choreographers, and songwriters. Also sports managers, and military special forces, even investigative detectives. Raw Productions, Reach Out and Witness Productions presents Hoodzville Rap. Written and produced by Larry W. Keys. This movie is about peer pressure and its consequences. Some people never have to go through it. But there are some who go through it and wish they didn't have to. It takes all types of people to become a role model, depending on the situation, time, and age. The setting, plot, and characters of this movie have been chosen by circumstances of living in a drug-infested city. I'm not here to glorify the situation but only to identify the situation. Because it's one thing to live it and another to survive it. Wow, you two have surprised me. You actually came back. Now, remember the party Jana and Chuck, then let's go. Man, seemed like everybody was nice that night. The music was jamming, the girls were giving up dances to everybody. Then a guy named Reggie along with Billy and Donald came in the party. Man, you talking about messed up, dipping, mug broken down, looking hip with the dip, hat cocked to the side. Chink said, "Damn Jim, that dude's messed up." Jim said, "I wonder what he had. He looks decent." Ski sent. Chink said, "Yeah." Jim remembered how he first met him. He was explaining to Chink when all of a sudden, bip, bip, and then bam. Reggie hit a dude 3 times in the face for stepping on his shoes. That fight crashed the party cause Billy and Donald lit sparks into the dude's ass as he ran out the door holding his guards up to protect himself from others who swung at him. They chased him out the door and down the street, which was the end of that party. Later that night on the way home Jim heard that Reggie had some cough syrup and slammers mixed. Naturally, Jim and Chink made sure that they would get some of that syrup and slammers the next time they got high. As they walked, Jim finished telling Chink about how he met the guy Reggie. "Remember Chink, when I started hopping buses down the bottom of the hill?" "Yeah man." Chink answered. "Well Rose introduced me to Reggie. When they were hopping buses, they met a lot of girls. The girls had their own little crew too, like Vicky, Jessica, Melissa, Kim, Rose, and a few others. Rose was slim, trim and everything in the right place. She had pretty black hair and brown eyes. It was the girls in her crew that made it so hard to get next to her. They had to approve of Jim first. It took a while before Jim and Rose got together. At first she wouldn't walk with him, she'd be looking at him and he'd be acting all slick and stuff, showing off. He knew she wanted him as much as he wanted her. He used to talk to her outside her window at night after he ducked his crew for a while. Being a girl her curfew was before Jim's. No matter how bad they were outside they had respect for the rules of their household. She and him would be laughing and stuff, talking about the stuff that be going on with them. He'd tell her about how he digs her and what if she was his girl. She told him that he hasn't been around long, down the bottom, and that she didn't want to start no trouble. Jim said, "Don't worry about it. Whatever it is, ain't nothing too heavy if you were my girl." She told him that too many guys were trying to pull her to be their girl and that he looked like a jealous type of guy. Jim said, "Yeah, Rose, that's right, I am, so what?" Rose said, "It's some bad dudes down here that like me, but they're a little older. One is Reggie, the other is Jojo, and Ricky." Jim said, "Hold up, wait a minute, all these guys about hurting somebody in a fight, and might even kill you if given a chance in a fight. I heard stories about them guys." She said, Huh. Jim thought about it, trying not to jump out. he said, so can I still see you sometime? She said, sure. She was his girl shortly after that night. Just like he got her, he lost her. He stops hanging and shooting craps for a while with his crew. The thrill was gone after a few months, they start arguing all the time. Either she wanted to hang out with her crew, or he wanted to hang out with his crew. They both were afraid to depart from each other in fear of losing one another. The excuses and arguments got worse, so their relationship was dissolved on a, "I'll see you when I see you," tip. They agreed that was for the best. They did go to the movies, hop buses together, their dreams were big but they missed the hanging with their crew, so eventually they just drifted apart but still remained friends. Once Jim explained the real story to Chink, he looked at Jim and said, "Man, what a messed up party that was, huh?" Jim and Chink looked at each other and went their separate ways after that conversation. Chink gave Jim a 5-slap, with their hands, about Jim thinking of Rose. Chink turned and hollered over to Jim as he walked up the street, "I would have still kept Rose as my girl." Jim started laughing as he walked toward the crowd, pointing and saying, "Look man, Duke getting his butt kicked." They both stumbled over to the crowd, which was gathering once again. Duke fell to the ground on his back, Bo on top fighting hard as heck. "Stand him up and we'll take him in tight, tell him he got stuck up." "Yeah right, let's do it," Jim and Chink said, have nodding to each other. "We gonna see what he do." Jim took Hector by the arm, then he saw lights flashing, and heard sirens sounding. Jim looked at Chink and they froze for a second. Then Jim looked along the fence and saw the hole in the fence by the bushes. It was a shortcut across the playground. For years no one ever repaired it because it was by the bushes and concealed. You had to know the playground to know it was there. It was a steep hill on the other side going down to the street. Drunks and dope fiends use this hill to fall out on. Go to sleep on, that's why they call it Fallout Hill. The sun was shining high, sweat started to drip off the guy's forehead. Chink smiling and said, "Let's get lazy ass Hector over to the hole before the police get us. I'm getting kinda tired and I don't think we can outrun them police right now." As Jim looked at Chink, he nodded and said, "Yeah, me neither man, I'd rather just nod right here." Jim said, "Come on, let's go." As they sort of kinda dragged Hector along the fence towards the hole. Hector finally woke up as Chink and Jim was pushing him through the hole. The police hollered, "Halt or I'll shoot," as people and dogs scattered across the playground. Hector peeped open one eye and said, "What's going on?" As GE was pushed down the hill. As he rolled down the hill, Jim and Chink went right behind him because you had to either slide down or roll down the hill. That's how steep the hill was. The fastest snow sliding and cardboard riding hill in Hoodzville. With the state of mind they were in, they chose to just roll down it and take their chances on getting caught. After they stopped rolling down the hill, they just laid there knocked out. When Hector woke up, the sun had just gone down and Jim and Chink were back up the hill a ways. He woke them up, and the three sat on the hill laughing about the playground. Then Chink saw the boy Vernon on the way up the street walking fast. Jim said, "He must have scooped some dope the way he's walking. Man, I'll never put that stuff in my veins." "Me either," they all said as they agreed on that with a high five. "Hey man, I forgot that next Saturday Mickey is coming home, so let's give him a party at your house, Hector." They all laughed, and decided to hop on the back of the bus to South Glen. That was a form of transportation they used to go get some beer and wine from the last stop bar. When the bus came, one of them would act like he was waiting on the bus, and when it slowed down to pick him up, he would take off running for the back of the bus. Then the guys in the middle would hold onto the advertisement frame or the top part of the bus roof. When the bus got to South Glen, they hop off cussing and fussing, hitting and playing. It was a 20-minute ride to get there. They had to go through West Park to South Glen. They stood across the street from the last stop bar. There was so much traffic that it would take too long to get across the street, so they turned around. They looked at the bridge on their side and knew that they were not supposed to go across it. This was forbidden territory for them because they were too young. Like they cared, so they grinned at each other and start walking toward the bridge. They looked like cowboys going to a gunfight. They walked across the bridge and at the end of the bridge was a rainbow, a pot of gold. Jumbo's clubhouse was poppin' that day, girls everywhere. It was Jumbo's instead of the last stop bar. They knew they were wrong. At least at the last stop bar they could get someone to buy some beer or wine. At Jumbo's if you didn't look right you could get beat up, stabbed or shot dead. The jukebox was playing so loud you could hear it from outside and there were girls, and girls. Hector said, "Damn, man. What's your problem? Why we didn't come here at first?" Chink said, "'Cause you know we don't belong here, we could get killed sucker." Hector looked at the girls talking outside, he winked one eye at them and then said, "What a way to die, man." Then he smiled again. Jim said, "So act like you know. If you can't feel it, steal it." They all gave each other a high five. Just then the door slung back and opened wide as they were walking up the steps to go inside Jumbo's. As the door opened wide a rush of wind and noise came out along with a slim dark-skinned guy running with his black cap on backwards, red and black alpaca sweater, and white lees. It was hard for Jim to tell the kind of sneakers he had on, because he was moving so fast. The sneakers would tell you which crew he was in. The look on his dark face let Jim know one of two things. He either saw a ghost or a monster. The screen door slung back shut, then it opened again. Bam! The screen door hit the wall. Jim was walking up the steps once again as a big light-skinned guy looking all crazy, came running out behind the first guy. He bumped into Jim. Jim's foot must have reacted to the bump the guy did to him, and Jim stuck out his foot and tripped the guy. He fell as the crowd came behind him. Everybody stopped in their tracks. Then the light-skinned guy they call Silky was rolling on the ground back and forth pointing at Jim. Silky looked up and said, "I'm gonna kill Scar. I'm gonna kill M. And you too, chump." Pointing at Jim. Hector and Chink eased back down the steps to give Jim running room. As they shouted to Jim, "Let's get the hell out of here, Jim." Jim jumped down off the steps, ran by Silky as he tried to get up. They cut behind Jumbo's store, slid down the hill, under the bridge and headed toward the railroad tracks. A few people started to chase them, until they hit the train tracks. Hector and Chink were behind Jim, but Jim was in the wind. Hector hollered, Jim, slow down, man, they ain't chasing us no more." Chink said, "Aw man, damn Jack. In between huffs and puffs, I never saw you run like that." That's when Jim realized that the drugs gave him extra strength. Jim was smoking fast that day. Jim finally slowed down and they caught up with him. Then they walked up the train tracks toward West Park. They got off the train tracks and went through West Park. Jim's grandmother, aunt, and uncles lived there. He was safe only because of his uncles, and they fight all the time. Then he ran across his cousin Elwood coming from the rec center. Jim explained to Elwood about the light-skinned guy and the guy dark-skinned that was running out of Jumbo's. Elwood and his girl started laughing and said, "You in trouble, man. That was crazy ass Scar, we heard he was looking for Silky." Hector said, "The dope dealer Silky. Aw damn, that's it, we 3 dead dudes." Chink said, "Man, all we need is a couple of Roscoes, guns, and we can straighten this stuff out." Hector said, "Man, you tripped that dude down the steps." Jim thought, "Damn, that guy don't know who I am." Then Jim said, "He shouldn't have tried to knock me down." Then they walked up to the bus stop looking over their shoulders, as if they were expecting someone. When they got to the bus stop they caught the bus back home. Hoodzville was divided up according to South Side, West Side, North Side, and East Side. They all lived in the south side of Hoodzville and Jim knew if they really wanted to find him they could. But, one thing his cousin told him was that, Scar wasn't a bad dude, he was fair to his crew. As Elwood and his girl Georgia, aka Little G. They were laughing at their story. They walked with them to catch the bus back home. They got off the bus up the shopping center at John's sub shop, bought a whole cheeseburger sub with everything on it and had it cut 3 ways. As they walked down the bottom looking for a crap game, somebody told them that Reggie just knocked some guy through John's sub shop window. Their stuff was more important. They sat down on the curb up the street from the crap game. They were trying to figure out their next move before Silky find out who they are. 2 weeks later. Smelling the morning dew, Jim was looking out of his window when he saw Chink come running across the street. As Chink entered the side of the building, Jim was putting on his pants. By the time Chink hit the door, Jim was picking his afro out. The door swung open. Jim was walking down the hallway toward the front door. Jim's mother turned around from the refrigerator, put her hands on her hips and started patting her left foot. She looked younger than she was in age. Her brown house coat hid her light brown skin frame from view. You could still see the womanly curves of her body that let you know that she still had a sexy body along with her natural curly brownish red hair. Chink put on brakes, like he had stopped on a dime making skid marks.
Brothers and sisters, remember the old man Blisters. He worked hard all day, he worked hard all night. Don't let the drug game take you in tight. Lift up your head, hold it up high, high. We need your love in order to survive. Cause on my block kids are selling dope, 11, 12, and 13. Some say their manhood will never be seen. Try to talk to them, you look like you're crazy. Some you get flew to, and some are just lazy. They leave their young girlfriend with habits of babies. To be behind bars is just plain crazy. Doing drugs in the street and not enough to eat. They lie and steal, it's no big deal. Brothers and sisters, remember the old man Blisters. He worked hard all day, he worked hard all night. Don't let the drug game take you in tight.